Okay, so sorry again about the delay, everybody, but thank you for as people could tell, I have been busy with law school, so was getting things together a little bit last second, but nonetheless, thank you all for coming. Looking forward to our my last meeting as president here. We've got a really good panel discussion lined up, and a good team, I think, who will be taking the reins for the next year. So with no further ado, yes, we have a school redistricting panel discussion that we will be getting to in a little bit, but first, just regular club business. So first off, just as usual, if people want to follow us on social media, subscribe to our email list, become a dues paying member, listen to our podcast, etc. Check out our link tree. It's got all of those links and more. It's linktr.ee/hocoprogressives. You'll find all of those links there. Usually our meetings are on the last Monday of every month, which is what today is, the last Monday of the month. Usually they're at 7 p.m. Tonight it was at 8 p.m. Sometimes we'll push it back to accommodate panelists if need be. If you want to sign up for our email list or any of our links, you can check out our website, hocoprogressives.com. You can find our bylaws, everything on there. Tonight is our club elections. It's technically, if you still want to pay dues and vote in the elections tonight, it's not too late. It's $36 for a year membership, just for yourself. And if you want to do, we have a +1 option to cover you and one other person for $50. Again, it lasts, through the calendar year. So it does expire in 2022. So if you want to vote tonight, you can pay that. We have Venmo as an option. Just put in the chat and we can send you the Venmo. We also could pay by check, which I'll get to in the next slide. But yeah, we also have a 3 to 6 month dues waiver option if paying the dues is a problem, but you still want to be a member. You do not have to be a registered Democrat in order to be a member of this club, but you do have to live in Howard County. And so we also have a couple committees. We have an International Solidarity Committee, a social committee, which has an event coming up soon, which we'll talk about. We've got a newly formed Union Solidarity Committee. And so to actually become a member, again, if you want to become a member and vote by tonight, you can still do so. We have Venmo. You can also mail the check there. And although the membership only lasts the calendar year, we do have a clause in our bylaws that says if you become a member in October through December of a given year, your membership will automatically roll over to the following year without you having to re-up your dues again. So if you want to vote tonight, you do have to pay by tonight. But if you want to wait a couple days for October, then you won't have to pay again next year. Treasurer's report. Sorry, we got another guest here. Hiruy sent me the treasurer's report. There's nothing too substantial. I think maybe we had like one new membership, but yeah, $1,391 in the bank account, plus another $420 in our Venmo. What is that? A little over $1,800, almost $1,800. Speaking of dues and new members, so we had, in addition to paying dues, it's actually a two-step membership process. You have to pay dues and you have to be voted in by a majority of PDHC members at a PDHC meeting. So last meeting, we voted a couple new people in, including first and only female county executive in Howard County history, Liz Bobo, as well as her husband and former county council member Lloyd Knowles. as well as some other new members of the club. In terms of this month, we do, we've had a bunch of people who had submitted interest, in the last couple months, and we have not approved them yet because they haven't really come to meetings. We don't really know anything about them. So we held off for them, and it looks like I don't think any of them are here tonight, as far as I could tell. But we do have one other new person, and that is Hongling Zhu, who is here tonight. And you just messaged me, do we have any other electronic payment method? Fortunately, no, not at the moment. That has been a request from other people besides just you, if we could get on Cash App or some other thing. Maybe that's something the new board might do, is adopt some other sort of membership tracking system that would allow people to pay. But yeah, right now, I don't like Hiruy, am I forgetting anything? Is there another way that she could maybe pay the dues?
Yeah, unfortunately, just Venmo and check for now.
Yeah. But nonetheless, it doesn't say in the bylaws that like you can't be voted in until you've paid dues. It just says you have to be voted in and paid dues, but not necessarily in that order. So nonetheless, we could still vote on your membership. You wouldn't be able to vote tonight, but we could still vote on your membership, just get that out of the way, and then you could pay dues sometime between now and next meeting. By next meeting you'll be a member. Hongling, if you want, usually we give people, the new members, a chance to sort of introduce themselves before we have opportunity to vote on them. So you want to introduce yourself to the club?
Hi, my name is Hongling Zhou. I'm actually on Chao Wu's campaign team, and so I've enjoyed meeting some of your members in the last couple of months or so. So I think I'd like to join you guys.
Yeah, no, well, thank you. And yeah, it's been good. Nice getting to know you over the last couple of months. And yeah, thank you for everything that you're doing, helping with Chao's campaign. Yeah, I guess, yeah, we could table all the other people's votes like we normally do, because again, they don't seem to be here. So I'm gonna motion that we put off all the other new member votes until next meeting, and we and also that we vote to swear in Hongling as a new member upon paying her membership dues. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Thank you, Drew. Is there any discussion? Okay. All in favor of voting Hongling as a new member upon dues payments, say aye.
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 Thank you.
All opposed, say nay. Okay, well, congratulations, Hongling.
Thank you, Jay.
Do you need me to put the address maybe in the chat if you want to mail a check maybe?
Yeah, I'll mail it. I found it on your website.
Okay. Cool. Thank you. Let me just make a quick note of this. Okay. All right, great. So moving on here with some more club business. So yeah, as I said at the top of the meeting, I'm sad to say it is my last meeting as president of the club. It's been a good year. I'm proud of everything that we've been able to accomplish. But as I said earlier, I started law school in August, and you know, I was already expecting it to be a lot and was planning on not running again even before I started. But you know, now that I've started, it was even more than I anticipated. So you know, originally I still wanted to at least maybe run for a different executive board position, maybe just not president, but it's become clear I probably even wouldn't be able to maintain that. So I am not running for reelection for president or for any executive board position, but nonetheless, the way that the elections work in our bylaws is, and I think this is to, you know, we took our bylaws largely from, you know, other clubs. And I think the reason it's done this way is just to ensure that there's at least, you know, every position that exists in the bylaws, there's a name running for it, and you don't have any positions with nobody running. But the way it works is there's a nominating committee, and then the nominating committee is supposed to nominate people for each position, club members for each position, again, to ensure that each position has at least one person running for it. So our nominating committee was PDHC members Tammy Spangler-Cohn, who I don't think is on tonight, but Drew Roth and Carla Teblow. So thank you, Drew and Carla, for serving as our nominating committee there.
You're
And
welcome.
to Tammy as well, who again is not here, but
Welcome.
Drew and Carla and Tammy had put forward the names. I'm going to go through them for each position. President Hiruy Hadgu, our current treasurer. Vice President Claudia Koenig from the Poco for Us slate. Treasurer Meagan Braganca, our current vice president, but she also has treasurer experience, and with Hiruy not running for that, we need somebody, you know, to fill that role. And then Karin Emery, our current secretary, running for re-election for secretary. She is in Hawaii, so she's in Hawaii for now on vacation, so she's not here tonight. And then for the at-large executive board positions, Kiana Folk running for re-election, and then Taneeka, Richardson, and Imran running for re-election as well after being appointed to those two vacancies at our last meeting. So that being said, that is who the nominating committee has nominated, but also the way that it works in the bylaws is, you know, people can be nominated or nominate themselves from the floor at the elections for any of these seats. You know, if you want to run for president or want to run for vice president or treasurer or secretary, you can nominate yourself or nominate somebody else right now. And also our bylaws say there needs to be a minimum of 3 at-large executive board members, but it also says there can be more than 3. So the nominating committee has nominated the minimum of 3 members, which is how many we had before. But if somebody here wants to also, you know, serve for an at-large position, you can do so, and you won't necessarily be running against any of these people because we have 3 people now, but we can have 4 people on as at-large members if another person wants to run. So I am going to open the floor up right now. If anybody, actually, before I do that, looks like somebody else is trying to join. Before I do that, I just want to show everybody who the eligible voting members are. I meant to make a slide about it, but luckily I have it here. So, just so people know. But and thank you, Mo, for joining us. I was just talking about the we're just getting to the elections here. I mentioned how you and Taneeka and Kiana have been nominated to run for re-election as at-large executive board members. So yeah, so here's our list of members. I think we've got 38 members. So I'm gonna open the floor up right now. Does anybody who is on the call and is a eligible member, does anybody want to nominate themselves to run for either any of the 4 officer positions or to run for an at-large executive board position? Going once, going twice. Okay, cool. So I have created a Google form already with the candidates who had been nominated, and I would have edited it with anybody who nominated from the floor and then sent it out, but looks like I don't have to do that, so I can just send the link out here. Looks like it's going to be not the most competitive elections, but that's okay. But I will send the link out here. I encourage people to vote, and I gave the option to abstain on every single one if people don't want to vote, in a particular race. But putting the link in the chat here for people to vote. Again, if you think that you are a eligible voting member, you don't see your name on there, please email us. I put our email address on there. Please email us if think that you should be on there, and we'll get that discrepancy resolved. But I put the link in the chat. Please vote for the in our first ever club re-elections. And I'm leaving it open to vote until midnight tomorrow. So I'm going to send it in an email to our email list so that members who weren't at tonight's meeting can still vote tonight or tomorrow. So the results will be final tomorrow by midnight. So there's that. I will, just for formality's sake, give each candidate the opportunity. They don't have to do it if they don't want. It doesn't have to be extravagant if they don't want, but give each candidate who's been nominated an opportunity to speak on, either introduce themselves, say, why they want what they want to do.
I hear his voice. They just had elections, so.
But yeah. So if Hiruy, do you want to say anything?
Yeah, thanks, Jake. I'll just say a few words here. So first, I wanted to recognize your role as as club president. I think this past year we as a club we did a lot of good, and we have made an impact. When we talked about, one of the things we said was we want to redefine, we want to reclaim the progressive mantle because it's been co-opted by what we describe as corporate Democrats. And I think there's been some examples of that where people have realized that what's been described as progressive in the in discussions is really not. And what we have shown is being progressive is about accountability, transparency, and those are those values that seem to be lacking. So I think you you did a really good job of leading the club as a community activist, with integrity, with transparency on every step of the way. And it's just been I appreciate working with you and getting to work with you over the past since the 2020, after the 2020 election. So I know you're gonna continue participating at some level, and so I know we'll continue working together. But wanted to recognize your role, just really brave, holding anybody and everybody accountable, or principally. So really worth recognizing there. And just wanting, if I was to share like 2 or 3 things that I'm hoping that we could do as a club. We've talked about it over the past few months, as well as continue to build a club, focusing on membership, and engaging on zoning and land use. I know we have the general plan coming up next year, and so engaging on that and continuing to remind people that being progressive means holding whether you're a Democrat or Republican, holding them accountable, and calling for transparency and accountability in county government and building trust in government at all levels. So that of course we as we've done, we work on consensus. So we'll but that would be those would be my thoughts in terms of how what I would hope we would achieve over the next year.
Well, thank you for those kind words, Hiruy. And yeah, I mean, I also agree. I'm proud of everything that we've been able to accomplish over the last year, specifically with rebranding what it means, what progressive policy looks like, what progressive housing and zoning and land use policy looks like at the local level. And I've always been dedicated to a lot of those things you mentioned, of not being afraid to hold authority accountable and transparency. But what was lacking in my analysis before was how to apply that to county politics and at the county and municipal level. So thank you to yourself, Hiruy, and to a lot of other people on this call, to Drew and others who helped open my eyes on those issues. And I have the utmost confidence that the club is being left in great hands, and you guys are going to continue pushing in that direction with that message. And I'll do what I can from a distance, but hopefully after this first semester, at the very least at the first year of law school, I'll be more available to get back in to the extent I was before. But okay, so moving on there. I think Claudia had joined us at one point. Claudia, did you want to say? Claudia, running for vice president, did you want to say anything?
Just very briefly, thank you, nominating committee. I'm honored. That's very wonderful of you all, Drew, Carla, and Tammy, to suggest me. So, and I will work hard, and I will familiarize myself with the goings on, and hopefully it won't take too long to do so. So thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Claudia. Claudia worked very hard for the HOCO for Us Slate and for Deb Young's county council campaign, which, as we all know, absolutely did make an impact. And it always helps to have an attorney on the board. So, okay, well, next we have Meagan Braganca, existing board member running for a different board position for treasurer. Meagan, did you want to say anything?
I mean, not too much. I don't, I just want to keep things rolling tonight. I guess I just, when we started the club, I was at a point where I was kind of aware of what was going on with the Democratic Party locally. I think after we ran for Central Committee, I realized really how ugly the party was. I have since left the party. I'm never going to go back. Yeah, it's just the Democratic Party has been a real disappointment with just the ugly behavior. I mean, if you look at the Deb Young campaign and what they tried to do to them, it was terrible. So anyway, I'm glad there is a PDHC. I've had so many people tell me that they're so grateful that we started things, and so many people message about like, what's PDHC going to do about this? You guys need to do something, and it's like, it's like people are just happy that there's a go-to that like, we're not afraid to say things, and we're not afraid to like call people out. And I don't know. I don't know where this county is going to go though. So anyway, thanks.
Yes, well, thank you, Meagan. Meagan has been there really from the very beginning of the inception of this club. It's her, myself, and Nick Smith, on the Columbia Democratic Club executive board that all snowballed into this, and Nick has since moved into to Colorado. So, it's been good to have Meagan there from the very beginning. I don't know how things would have went if she was not there. But yeah, so on our next secretary, Karin Emery, running for re-election. She's unfortunately, fortunately for her, she's in Hawaii on vacation right now, so she can't say anything. But Karin also been a huge instrumental part of building this club from basically the second that we launched. She had prior secretary experience, and she also has a foot sort of in some of the Dem clubs already, and certainly a more diplomatic person than myself. So she's been hugely helpful, and she's running for re-election. Next we have our at-large board members, Kiana running for re-election. Kiana, do you want to say anything?
I guess not much. I'm aware that with the 2022 elections going on, things have been more focused on getting the candidates, progressive candidates at the council elected, and some level at the Board of Education. But I look forward to coming up with events and other ways that the club can get more involved at the local level, especially helping the more vulnerable members of our community and empowering workers.
Yes, absolutely. Kiana has also, been involved with the club from its launch as a charter member. Her and I organized together all the way back in Salisbury, and she's been. I didn't have a chance to put anything about this in the slides today because, again, I was doing things a little bit last second, admittedly, but she's been doing a lot of good work putting together, different resources and organizations around the county to help, those in need. And, we've already started, but probably more after the election, going to work on, how to effectively distribute those resources and information to people. So thank you for the direct aid efforts on those fronts, and thank you for running for re-election, Kiana. We also have Taneeka Richardson running for re-election. I'm not sure if Taneeka is with us tonight, but Taneeka also a member of the Hoco for Us slate, and deep level of knowledge in housing policy, affordable housing, and just finance in general. So I think she will add a lot to the board. And last but not least, we have Mo Imran running for also for re-election of the executive board position, also from the Hoco for Us slate, one of the hardest working members on it. In fact, Mo, did you want to say anything? Mo, I don't know if you're trying to say anything, but we can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Okay,
Let me see. Let me
now I can
see.
hear it. Now I can hear it.
Okay. Okay. So, well, all of you that in the last 3 weeks, I've been with some issues, and that's the reason I told him that I will be not be attending some of the meetings and going. But I mean, silently I was following it, but I could not participate because my mind was not there. Try to resolve those issues. So finally, I got a resolution somewhere. This got fixed. So this year, I mean, what I said to, I understand that. Let me all of you that our local issues doesn't mean that it's not important. It's very important. In fighting, that things are going on. But to tell you that, it's not only in Howard County or in Maryland. These things happen even in the Republican parties as well as Democratic parties happening, and other states are in touch with Arizona, I'm in touch with California.
Hey Mo, could you speak up again a little bit?
No, don't have that.
There, we can hear you. Go on.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Still sounds
Yeah,
faint.
actually, no, I'm sorry.
Huh? Can you?
Yeah, there we go. There we go.
There you go. Okay. Okay. What I'm trying to share with all of you now that, I understand, first of all, that I'm sorry that in the last few weeks I was not engaged because I had some personal issues with my work and I had to resolve it. And that's the reason I could not focus my mind, but it's finally got done. So I understand that a lot of people are saying that, it is depressing in Howard County. Some of the things are happening within the Democratic Party, infighting or whatever, that's not fair or that's not pleasant. But let me tell you that I don't know how many of you are in touch with other states or Democratic caucus or Republican parties, those people are. If you go in California, you go Arizona, Michigan, Florida, Colorado, I'm in touch with people, is this kind of like disagreement and infighting is happening in everywhere. It's nothing something that Howard County is the worst one. So I don't want you to feel that way. It is there everywhere, So we'll have to overcome those obstacles. It's not like we should feel very depressed that, oh, this is something, the worst county or something worse, Democratic caucus. No, that is not there. It is always will be there. And we'll have to find a way to overcome that hurdles and then find the mission that we would like to go for. Another thing that I think is very important, this midterm election. Yeah, our nationwide that if House cannot retain majority, forget about infighting, just for Democratic majority. If there is a probability, especially after Roe versus Wade got flipped in the way the Supreme Court, that re-energized the nationwide, especially women voters, everybody, and we need to take that opportunity. And I'm kind of in touch with some people in Philadelphia or Virginia or wherever. Krishnamurti from Chicago, I was attending, some of the fundraising event that, make sure that you support whichever way that if we can keep our House majority. If we lose that whatever January 6th and DOG is doing, that effect might not be as good if something goes wrong in other way. So that is my another message to all of my Democratic colleagues, that whichever way you have some connection, keep your focus, of course, in the local level and whatever we want to do. But midterm election is not far, within 30 or whatever days left, and keep on calling and wherever you can do something, volunteering, calling them, vote for other people in other states so that we can stay in majority in the House and Senate. That's and Jake, it's my privilege that you guys all felt that that you like to give me that opportunity to serve you, and I'll try my best to take that role and do it well.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Mel, and thank you again for everything you've done for the club and for HOCO for us. And you know, good to have you back. I'm glad everything is okay now. And then, yeah, you touched on a lot of points. I think you're right. You know, I almost wish that what was happening in our local Democratic Party was just kind of an anomaly and was not very representative of you know, what's happening in the Democratic Party nationally at the state level and other counties. But yeah, I think it is probably pretty representative of the Democratic Party dynamics at large. And so, yeah, that's something that, you know, we're going to have to continue to learn how to, you know, maneuver around and grapple with. And yeah, I mean, there's a lot of very important, you know, national and state issues as well, that, you know, do or do not connect with county issues. So look forward to having that perspective represented on the board. So again, I put the Google form in the chat. You just heard from, you know, what's looking like is going to be the new board, minus Karin and Taneeka, but they're great too. So we are going to move on. Just highlight two upcoming events real quick. One is, you know, on related to our No Developer Donation Campaign pledge, and our social committee. I don't think Lizette is here this evening, but Lizette, our social committee chair, she is, we have a club social event / pledge event this Saturday, October 1st at 7 p.m. at Lizette's home at 2774 St. John's Lane in Elkridge City. This is Meagan's idea. We ordered some stamps that, you know, say, you know, have messaging around getting money out of politics, and we're going to do a little dollar bill stamping party to, you know, stamp that, spread the message about the pledge and getting money out of politics. So I'll put that in the chat. And then also, not this Wednesday, but the Wednesday after that is an APVO 101 webinar that PDHC is a co-host of, that Hiruy helped organize. I think Brent Loveless from the Parent Teacher Association of Howard County will be giving that. It's about adequate public facilities ordinance, which is probably a pretty damn good transition into our panel. I will talk about Progressive Maryland at the end, but our panel discussion on school redistricting, which APVO could probably help address in the future. So with no further ado, I will turn the panel over to fellow Elkridge resident, Drew Roth, who is going to be moderating the panel, and Drew can, you know, speak on the subject and introduce the panelists and get to it. So Lizette's party's at 7 p.m. Joan. I'll put the details in the chat. But yep. All right.
Okay. So working with Jake and Hiruy, we prepared 6 questions to ask the panelists, and I've shared the questions with each of the panelists. And after we've done those questions, if time permits, we can ask questions that are entered into the chat. So feel free to toss your ideas into the chat. So let's start by having each of the panelists make a quick introduction, and then I will give them the first question. We start with Vicky.
Hello, good evening. I'm Vicky Cutroneo. I'm chair of the Board of Education, and I'm serving in my last few weeks on the term on the board. And like Jake, we'll be looking at Howard County from a distance, probably more so me than Jake. I think you'll be roped back in, but so I think out of all the board members, I'm probably the most objective at this point. And just a disclaimer, I'm going to be really careful about what I say. I've already talked to Jake and Drew about this because we are in the middle of redistricting, and I will not be speaking on anything specific to our redistricting that we're going to go through. I'm just going to be speaking in general terms, and if I feel a little uncomfortable, I'm going to say no comment and open it up to my colleague Chow Wu, who's on here, if he wants to comment, but just that little disclaimer. So thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I find when you mentioned Deb Young's campaign, I felt like that was like the great unifying campaign. It unified parties and all sorts of people you would never think would get along and agree on something. And so that just shows what this the mission of Progressive Democrats is. It's a lot in common with other people from other parties who are tired of the big money in the decisions of our political leaders. So thank you for having me.
Okay, Dr. Chen.
Hi, good evening. So thank you, Jake, for inviting me. So I'm the Dr. Chen. I run for school board, and also I'm the candidate who have the pleasure signer, no developer money. So I really holding that one to my campaign. So that's from my side. Thank you.
And next, Dr. Hotopp.
Hi, I'm Julie Hotopp, and I did run for Board of Education, but I think I'm here as a parent, so I think.
Okay, and now the first question, and we'll rotate around and we'll give this question to Dr. Chen to start. What does equity mean to you? What is the best way to pursue equity in Howard County Public Schools? And this question is motivated by the last two updates to Policy 6010 that governs redistricting, which places an emphasis on equity in redistricting.
Sorry.
So, and I put the question in the chat.
Did you direct it to anybody in particular?
To Linfeng.
Oh, okay.
Oh, to me? Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I didn't. Okay. Thank you, Joe. So my understanding first is that every student is different, and also every student has a unique interests, strengths, and abilities. To me, equity means provide opportunities and the resources to all students to maximize their potential in the areas of their interests, academics, sports, arts, or leadership. They don't have to be equal, and some of the students need more resources than others to succeed. We also must identify what resources every student needs to succeed. So if you pay attention to my my platform, the number one platform is to commit the quality of the public education. Why? Our public education must benefit all students, regardless their economic situation or where they live in the county. A poor quality public education hurts families who can least afford alternatives. So HCPSS is the most important asset this county can offer. A quality public education is the key to a better and a fair society and a community. And excellent public education is a good way to achieve equity. Back to you, Drew. Do you want me to answer the second question?
No. Let me hand it off to Julie, to Dr. Hotopp.
Sure.
Julie, up to you.
Sure. I mean, so I like I'm guessing many of you guys have seen the like graphic on equity, and I like that where you have, 3 kids of different height and they all need different size boxes to look over the fence, right? And I mean, I think that's a great way to look at equity. If you want everybody to be able to see over the fence, right? And you want everybody to be able to see over the fence equally. I think the problems that arise in trying to discuss equity and address equity is deciding what fence the kids are going to look over. And I think also sometimes trying to figure out, like, I think different people have different views of the size of the box that the kids need to be on. And so I think those are like the barriers that are there. And I mean, I think sometimes we need to have honest discussions about that, and they're tough discussions, but I feel like those discussions aren't happening in an honest way. I think a lot of times people are talking at each other instead of talking with each other. And so I think, I think that is one of the things we really need to work on. And I do find that oftentimes that, at least in HCPSS, but maybe even the world in general, there's kind of these silos of different groups wanting to achieve equity for their group of students, and they're very focused on their group of students, and there's not enough of bridging those silos.
Okay, and Vicky, over to you.
I'm going to sort of parlay off of Julie or Dr. Hotopp, and being so formal.
Julie's fine, everyone.
But you know what? You're due that doctor before your name. So you've earned it. So I think in terms of HCPSS, I think we've started to just use equity for everything, and it's sort of diluting the meaning of it. And when you do that, you sometimes harm those kids you're trying to help in the long run the most. I'm going to use it in relation to redistricting. We moved from Bryant Woods Elementary, kids that could walk 5 minutes across the street to Bryant Woods, and they now became walkers to, I think it was Thunder Hill, which was 25 minutes. And these students, a Longfellow, that's it, thank you. That would have been a really long walk to Thunder Hill.
Well, and through a neighborhood that's not very walkable.
Right, it was, I walked it and it was challenging, and granted it was 95 degrees when I walked it, but I'm just imagining little kids with backpacks and instruments and laptops now walking that, and these are the kids that need to have breakfast in the morning for the most part. These kids that came from this one apartment, 2 apartment centers, I think, and they were already a lot chronically late for school, and so to give them that extra walk, 20 minutes more in the morning, we trying to help them because of equity, put them into a more socioeconomic diverse school. But did we hurt them? Because now we've made it harder for them to get to school in the morning, and maybe they haven't eaten since lunch the day before because they don't have food at home and they had lunch at school. So, and another example, we put kids that they could spit at Talbot Springs Elementary, this beautiful new school that is a community school that is going to serve them more than just academically, but they are bused to Thunder Hill. That's a school to Thunder Hill. And a lot of the parents, they don't have transportation, so they can't be involved in their kids' schools because we don't have the transportation to support them in the evenings to get to after school activities, or for the kids to participate in after school activities for them to pick them up. And so we in the name of equity, I think we miss, because we speak for a student, and a lot of these families, they weren't the ones coming to public hearing. They didn't even know about it. They're just trying to get by. So I think that that's the problem with our, a lot of what we do is we just overuse this word, and we miss the mark a lot, and end up hurting those students who need the most, or we send them to a school where they don't have the resources they had because they were in a Title I school. So they don't have all the reading supports, they don't have the extra staffing, they don't have all of the other socio-emotional supports that they need. They don't have the translators. And that's a huge one. That was a huge issue at one of our schools. They didn't have the translators. And so the parents had just no way to be engaged in that school. And so I think and I'm sorry to prattle on, but I think that is an example of where we're trying to level that playing field that Dr. Hotopp was talking about, but we actually make it worse for them.
Well, and if I can just pile on, like you have.
Please pile on.
Yeah, you have the kids who need breakfast who are going to Bryant Woods, who could, if they miss the bus, walk to Clemens Crossing. And you have the kids going to Clemens Crossing who could probably walk to Swansfield, right? And so we took all these kids and just shuffled them around. And I know there's one family, at least in particular, that struggles to get to Bryant Woods because they don't have the transportation. And so, yeah, it was all done in the name of equity, but in actuality, like we just shuffled kids around that all needed breakfast and moved them all further away. And that makes it even harder for them, right? Like it just, it doesn't, yeah. Anyway, so let me just pile that on. But anyway, I will stop now.
Okay, Dr. Chen, Linfeng, would you like to add any more to that?
Well, I think it's already really concrete example. I also heard it from the parents. So I can use that one as answer my second question about the way to pursue the equity in HCPSS. So just like Vicky and Julie said, what I observed that we spend a lot of money on the HCPSS over years, but did not solve the problem we are facing, and we actually make it worse in some case. And we solve the wrong problems. So I think really the key step for us is try to define the problem correctly and see what happened and what caused them direct, authentic communication between school and the communities absolutely necessary to identify a problem and solve them. Don't minimize the assumptions. And the second, I think we can do is focus on the human basis. People who help and the people who need help. It doesn't matter how, thorough the policy is, but if nobody buy in, the policy doesn't solve the problem. So, and I think that's also the policy. If it's not a follow, it's just a paperweight, and it's only the memory is the stealer. So the third one I want to say is that we have to remember the quality of education outcome is a teamwork. It's a school staff, students, and the families and the communities work together. The schools cannot do it alone, and the community and the family support is very, very important. HCPS can do its share by minimizing some negative impacts, like economic disparity, by providing resources to the students, the family who really need help. For example, like tutoring and the safe free meal after schools, and also some of the after school sports. I think also we can use some of the community resources to help. But the first step is to define the problem. That's the really first step. So thank you.
Okay, I'm going to move on to the next question, which I'm putting in the chat. How much influence do developers and the building industry have on the Board of Education, on the Office of School Planning? What is the best way to deal with this influence? And feel free to answer all of the questions, all of the parts of that question at once, and hand it off to Julie to start.
I honestly don't know how much influence the building industry has. I suspect a great deal. I suspect it just by, for instance, the moves that are made that open up different areas for development. All the years that we lived here at Clemens Crossing and my son was at Clemens Crossing, it was over capacity until magically it became under capacity. A whole bunch of development happens and then it's over capacity again. And it seems suspicious. I mean, those, moving kids out, opening up the capacity, development happens, and then we move kids back in to make it over capacity. Like, it seems very suspicious. But I honestly don't know how much influence they have. I mean, I see lots of different claims, and I don't know for either of those. And how to deal with that influence is also an interesting question. I mean, I do really appreciate the work of many people, including, I think, many people in this organization who have brought awareness with posts. I can't remember exactly who it was, who had a whole bunch of posts about how, like, there's a whole bunch of developers who, donate not under names that you would recognize as developer names for different campaigns, and bringing that to light. And so I think that's helpful. But I think more needs to be done. Yeah.
Okay, Vicky?
I don't even know where to begin. I think in the past, definitely, I think we had a board member that collected a lot of money, tens of thousands of dollars from developers, and there were some decisions made about capacity, arbitrary increases of capacity at the elementary level and middle and high through the years. I think that's a direct way that the Board of Education is influenced. I also think that the board in the past was not involved enough in the planning and zoning process, especially when it came to ZRA, zoning regulation amendments. Those directly impact capacity potential. And I mean, sometimes in some cases, double the capacity in a development, and the board has already done their forecasting, and then suddenly there's a ZRA that changes it, and we haven't taken that into account. So I think directly, yes, I think that the board has been influenced. I don't think recently it's been a direct influence because I'm a walking conspiracy theorist. And so I'm constantly looking at that and like, what's going to open up and all, you know, that stuff, you know, most of the time I'm right about my conspiracies, but I am wrong, like probably 20% of the time. But I think in the past there's been direct. I think now it's more an indirect, like the board not getting on top of things, not getting on top of a ZRA that's coming that has really, you don't even know the impact it will have until it happens. For example, when they decreased the, for the CAC zone, which is all along Route 1, the Corridor Activity Center, which was the biggest bogus zoning ever, Drew Roth can probably agree with me on that. They've continually decreased the amount of commercial requirement. And so when you do that, you increase the residential potential. And so we've already calculated the you know, the projections, and then suddenly it's Blue Stream just had it done. I mean, we just had it again. And Blue Stream is killing us. I mean, Bellows has got 100 new students within a school year last year, 100 students, over 100 in a COVID school year. So that shows you the impact of what that can do. And it was townhouses, which, you know, you go from apartments to townhouses, you really increase the numbers. So that's where I think there's indirect influence, that the board is just not getting on top of things enough and needs to be more invested in that process. But as far as like our pockets getting lined by no, that's not how you look at our campaign. Like, I mean, there are some, but there's not this big money that you see with some of our county council and county exec level. And certainly most of the board, you don't see any developer contributions. None of our pockets are getting lined with anything. So yeah, I think, you know, also if there's ever like, they come back and they say they're going to have a study, a capacity study, watch that carefully, because suddenly, I mean, it happened in Elkridge, suddenly there was this increased capacity that was arbitrary. They did an assessment, Gilbert and Associates. If you see that coming, that's a red hair, like that's flags. I'm not going to be here, but somebody has to watch out for it, because they just increased the capacity, and the footprint of the school has not increased at all. So that's very suspect. So I think those things, when those things happened, yes, I do believe that there was influence on the Board of Ed to make those decisions. But more recently, no, I don't think there's a direct influence. There's just these sneaky little ZRAs that come through that we haven't been able to sway the county council enough to say no to.
Okay, Linfeng.
Yeah, I think I hope, just like Vicky said, we will keep the money out of, so we can make a really best decision for the students. When I live in Howard County almost 12 years, the school is still the same in the brick school, but it's so much development in my area. The Milk Plant, the Maple Lawn area, it's just like bamboo shoots is coming up, but that's making me really huge concern. I don't have hard evidence, but I hear people around me and people live long enough to know the story. I think definitely developer and the building industry have make a big impact in the decision. I think on the council level, the BOE side, I think I don't know the coming, but I think in some example, redistricting can reduce some of the overcrowding, just as Julia mentioned, and then the developer can build more units again after redistricting. So that's very suspicious. We definitely need to pay attention to that. So yeah. I think for the really best way to dealing with the influence is try to monitor and expose, and anything looks suspicious, we need to make a public aware. And also the important position like a council member, we definitely need to make sure the developer money clearly see if it's have a big impact. We need to make sure hold accountable. So thank you.
Can I just add one more thing? Personally, I don't think there's one reason in the world why a Board of Ed member should be accepting developer donations. And I think it's incumbent upon Board of Ed candidates to know the LLC, That's because developers have about 1 billion LLCs that they operate under. So I had good friends that are developers and I refused the money because perception is reality. And I don't want anyone perceiving that I was receiving money from a developer for any reason. I don't care if they're my brother or sister, like there's just no reason. And to maintain your integrity and the faith that the community has in you, you should not be accepting developer. There's just no reason for a Board of Ed candidate to do that. That's my pontificating for the evening.
Well said. Thank you, Vicky.
Okay, thanks. All right, on to the next question. Is the Board of Education's role to see that Howard County Public Schools follows policy, or is the Board of Education a safety valve to override policy when necessary? And start this one with Vicky.
Yeah, it's our role to follow policy, but if we see a need for a change in policy, then we should follow the process to change that policy and follow that. So, but you know, some of our policies are more challenging than others. As you know, the 6010, the redistricting policy, we can't possibly meet every single tenet of a policy. And so it becomes a sticky wicket with interpreting it. But that is our job, to carry out policy through, you know, to fidelity, to use that buzzword. And if there's a need, if there's a consensus to change policy, we need to follow the proper avenues to do that.
All right. And of course, Howard County Public Schools has a policy on how to change policy.
Yeah, the pre-approval of the approval of the pre-approval to change the policy.
Right. Julie, on to you for that one.
I have to follow that. So, I mean, are we talking just about the redistricting policy, or are we talking about policies in general?
Well, I think it's policy in general. Okay, I'm going to throw an observation in here. And a couple of redistrictings ago, I believe that one of the reason redistricting was extremely controversial is because some board members position themselves as advocating for parents to oppose the policy in policy 6010, at which point it promoted enormous chaos because all of the parents who didn't like what redistricting was doing got a message that, well, if we just lobby it hard, we'll get what we want regardless of what the policy says. So that's, I don't want to editorialize that and like feed you an answer, but that was kind of the historical motivation for the question.
Well, I'll just say, like, you know, sitting here as a parent, I see all the time that the policies aren't followed. Like, you know, like last year, like I honest to God really needed my son's homework assignment to be due on a certain day. And that's HCPSS policy, right? Like you have assignments, you have a due date, they're due. If they're late, there's a penalty, right? Like there's a policy for that, but it's not enforced. Like due dates were like, I don't know, wishful thinking is the best I can put it, right? And so, and so then, you know, they actually had the entire semester. But if your child has, you know, accommodations for extra time, there's no understanding of what that means under those situations. And so, you know, like it sort of feels like the policies are there. Like right now, you know, like somewhere, I can't remember which of the Facebook forums, there's kind of a brouhaha about the dress code policy, right? Like, so, you know, we have a dress code, it's policy, but yet when girls in some schools are being sent home because their midriffs are showing, but girls in other schools aren't being sent home because their midriffs are showing. You know, there's this whole idea behind having this one school system, and these policies will be across the whole school system, but you know, it doesn't manifest. And you know, I feel like the board has no teeth. I mean, what are you going to do, right? What are you going to do if that principal doesn't enforce it, or any of those types of things? Like, maybe we can't afford to fire all our principals. And so, I think there's a real struggle there. And I think that's true of lots of the policies. I mean, I think it's probably easier for the board to follow its own policies, but I mean, I think we definitely see examples where they don't. You know, I'll just say, you know, even things like following Robert's rules, right? With the ratification vote that came with respect to my polygons after, you know, after the redistricting debacle last time, they didn't even follow their own rules. So, I mean,
Julie, you just triggered me.
I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. With the ratification, is that
Yeah, that word? I was like,
did that trigger you? It triggered me too. Maybe a little differently though. But you know, like, you know, it's just, you know, it's like all politics, right? What is it? I forget what the saying is. I'm trying to give a saying and I'm really bad at giving sayings, but the means justifies the ends or something, or the ends justifies the means, I guess is the saying. And I find that to be the case, right? Like oftentimes the ends justify the means.
Okay. Linfeng.
So I think I have a big issue about the policy, and we have so many policy. I don't know how the parents know all of them and the follow through. And I'll give you one example. It's about the cell phone policy. And then even a teacher coming to me, oh, we have a new policy school. That's a middle school cannot use a cell phone during the school day. But you look back, the policy is there for a long time, at least I think 2 to 3 years. So it's like a big gap. We have a policy, but how many people know that? How we are implementing those? And and also the policy is cold, but how do we put a human face there to make people acceptable, or make a decision, not overcomplicated? Apparently some of the policy you cannot do as exactly as it is. Just too many parameters to me. So anyway.
Okay, thanks. All right, next question. What is the current amount of deferred maintenance in Howard County Public Schools? And what is the amount needed to build the needed school capacity so we no longer have relocatable classrooms? And where will this money come from? We'll start this one with Julie.
I did not do my homework, so I did not look up how much these are, but it's a lot for both. But
600 million.
What'd you say?
600 million.
600 million.
You might as well just say 5 billion. Doesn't matter. It's a lot. That's
just a more
well,
zero.
But I do know that I was in the PTAC meeting, the last PTAC meeting. I don't know if anybody else was, and we're not supposed to quote Dr. Martirano on this, but he gave a number on just getting rid of all the relocatables. And it was interesting because I leaned over to the president of our elementary school PTA, who I was sitting next to, and I'm like, isn't that the exact same amount as the cultural center? And I thought that was pretty interesting because nobody thinks about it as, can we have a cultural center or can we get rid of all the relocatables, right? And the cultural center has been like this lightning rod issue, but it's one of those things where it's like, I think people should be able to have that choice, and maybe put it to the ballot even, of what are we going to choose? Like, which is more important to us, a cultural center or for every kid to have a seat in a brick and mortar classroom? And, I think the money is there. It's the choices we make. And, we have chosen to prioritize a cultural center over having seats for every kid in a brick and mortar classroom. And, I think that's in essence to me what's done. And, oftentimes the conversations about, well, do we need the cultural center? Do we need the cultural center? Yes, we need the cultural center. We're like, this hotbed of development and it'll attract people and blah, blah, blah. And we need the low income housing that's coming along with it. And, Toby's needs is valuable and we need a replacement. But, we can say all those same things about the schools and we're not having those conversations, right? I would say the same thing, the conversation about Roslyn Rise. There were many of us who, Roslyn Rise is a low income housing that'll go to Bryant Woods. Bryant Woods is already going to be over capacity, and yet they expanded the amount of low-income housing. Yes, we need low-income housing, but we also need to address the schools that those low-income housing projects are being funneled into. And I testified about Bryant Woods just last week, right? And the need for capacity there. There's a report in 2009, which was 5 years after the last renovation of Bryant Woods, that says how undersized the classrooms were then. And I haven't gone through to figure out like what were the size of the classes then, but I'm sure our class sizes have increased. Our classrooms haven't. The classroom building hasn't. At the time, the ALS classrooms were undersized, and currently we run 3 ALS classes out of 2 classrooms, right? When that's brought up with respect to Rosalind Rise, the people who are bringing it up get attacked because we're anti-affordable housing. And it's like, just because we're pro getting the space for those kids in the schools, right, at the same time that we build the housing for them, that shouldn't mean that we're anti-affordable housing. Just like there isn't the infrastructure there at that intersection, and that is brought up and nobody wants to talk about it, right? And so anyway, long answer short, I don't even know if I answered the question, but I rambled for a while, sorry. I'll get off my soapbox.
That's all right. Linfeng.
So I went to Bryant Wood. I think it kind of, the school is small, but there's a lot of portables. I feel like a portable takes more space than the actual school. So yeah.
And those classrooms might be bigger. And right, yeah.
Yeah. Also, another concern with the current coming, if we have more pre-K, I really don't see the portable can be reduced. So we just keep adding. So we always lag behind. We don't have money, and then when is the time to fix the problem? We just kick the can down the road, and at the end of the day is the APFO. How can we strengthen them? How can we have the money from the all the development put into the money really needs and start to building the schools? I think that's really the urgent needs. We already lag at 20 years behind. We always try to wait hitting the redistricting 115. It's supposed to be below 100. But we seem satisfied over 100, and we are satisfied with the portables. For me, it's not acceptable. We should give us safety and a good learning environment back to the students they deserve. So,
Vicky.
Well, I'm on the Board of Education because of deferred maintenance. And it's something that I just tried to elevate constantly because it's not very exciting. It's not as exciting as new capacity or brand new school. And I think that's why we are where we are. We built a lot of schools at the same time when we were rolling in money in the early 70s, 80s. And they all are needing major systemic renovations at the same time. For example, Centennial and Oakland Mills High School right now. And we get into a position where, because we can't, the Board of Ed can't print money, we can't tax, we can't, I mean, we can advocate certainly for new funding streams, which I'll speak about in a second, but we rely on the county to have the funding that the state will match for our projects. It's not like I would do every project if we had the money that we need. It's not like I'm saying, no, I don't want to do that. It's we can't do it. We have to pick and choose, and we're forced. I said this before, Sophie's choice. And it pits communities against each other, and both communities need that renovation. And it's not like we pick, we're equal opportunity when it comes to deferred maintenance. Every school that's gotten a renovation has waited decades. It's been overdue. Every single school. Dunlogan's waited forever. Jeffers Hill is straight out of 1972, that school. I mean, they haven't had an update. Bryant Woods, Julie, I went there, Dr. Hotopp, I went there and witnessed the ALS program in action, and it was horrific. A child in a wheelchair couldn't even wheel herself, which is a violation of the American with Disabilities Act. I mean, it's so not compliant.
I mean, I think having 3 ALS classes and 2
It's crazy.
classrooms is just waiting for a lawsuit.
It's crazy.
It's
And schools like Bryant Woods have all these pullouts. So you need more space in schools. In Title I schools, you need more space for pullouts. Otherwise, you've got teachers pushing carts down the hallway. But what is happening is all these schools coming to fruition at the same time, needing these major systemic renovations. But we also have so much enrollment, so much growth in the county that we've got to build capacity. And those projects have taken priority. And the schools that are in established neighborhoods that aren't necessarily getting the new development, they have suffered. We testified about the Roslyn Rise, and yes, it pitted us against affordable housing. I'm pro school capacity. I'm not against affordable housing, and somehow that narrative gets turned against anybody who speaks against it. Because why should kids who are living in lower socioeconomic status be crowded into overcrowded schools? I don't get this APFO exemption. It just makes no sense to me. But that being said, we found there is capacity in Columbia downtown with Swansfield. So, you know, there was that you know, we could work with. But what did I say I was going to get back to in a second?
Where the money comes from?
No, shoot, I've lost my train of thought. I get so fired up about deferred maintenance, I lose my mind. But here we are again, and now we have to build pre-K. And so suddenly the Faulkner Ridge project, $21 million, what is that taken away from? And we've moved up elementary school 43 by a year, but we've pushed down Centennial, we pushed down Oakland Mills High School, because we have all this new capacity we've got to build. And the schools, just think about how much it costs to build a school or to repair an HVAC now compared to if we did it when we're supposed to, it'd be so much cheaper. We're just lighting money on fire. We're leaving money on the table. The state has a fund, it's the Healthy Schools Fund. Other counties have tapped into it. It's funding just for HVACs. We've never taken advantage of it because we've never had the county funding to match it. So I feel like we could say it's $5 billion, 600 million. It doesn't matter. It's so unmanageable. It's depressing. We will never catch up. The rate, our funding compared to inflation is flat or decreasing actually. So it's when they say how much deferred maintenance, I might as well say $15 billion. It doesn't, because 600 million we're never going to catch up. And our schools, it's no longer a maintenance issue. It is a health safety issue. Kids are getting sick. And it's embarrassing in this county that we have schools that have HVACs that are original from their 1970s build. I mean, would we put up with that in our own homes? We wouldn't. And so I just think it's a travesty. And, you know, as the mom of a former student who is resistant to tons of antibiotics because of her mold exposure and being placed on antibiotics for no reason at Glenwood Middle, I feel for all of the students and staff who have to work in sick buildings.
So Vicky, this was one of my campaign things, is that I thought we should put forth the capital budget that is actually needed.
Oh, I will be proposing that, but it's that we're told what we're going to get. These are the funding, this is what we're going to be able to match with the state. And I am all for that, but it sets the communities up it's messing with people because they think they're on, the Board of Ed has put them on their list, but there's no funding to support it. So I feel like that's great, because then it puts the onus on the county where it should be for the funding levels and not getting enough revenue from developers.
But isn't that what we've done for the operating budget? And to some
extent, that doesn't
the
set
operating
people,
budget has increased.
Point taken. I mean, I think but even knowing that we're securing the funding, it's still, I feel like we still defer projects even after we said this is when it's going to happen. We pull the rug out. And so it really sets our communities up. We jerk them around with this. And I feel like if we did that, that would be more jerking around of the communities. And I think the board needs to do a better job of really they need to come out like they came out last Wednesday or Thursday, go out to the county council, go to the county executives' public hearings, because that's where the funding is coming from. For 3 years, Delegate Atterbury has put forth a deferred maintenance legislation. It was a commercial development excise tax. The delegation wouldn't even take it out of the drawer to vote on it because they didn't want to vote on it in public. You know, we've had ideas, we've had Delegate Atterbury to elevate this, every year, and it never took a vote. So it's frustrating because everybody wants to glom onto this you know, the deferred maintenance as campaign platforms, but nobody did anything. You know, what have you done the last 4 years to help us out here? So I see what you're saying, Julie. I want to ask for what we need, but I also don't want to be less than transparent to the community what the reality is going to be.
Okay, Dr. Chen, do you have anything you want to add onto this before we move on to the next question?
I'm good. It's a lot of point ahead, so thank you.
I'll stop dominating. I'm going to.
Oh, no, that was great.
No, you're good.
I'm so fired up now about deferred maintenance. I gotta.
No,
I just think we need to figure out how to put more pressure on the county council and the county executive, because I'm exactly with you, Vicky. The Board of Ed has very little control over this. And I do not feel like anyone else's feet are being held to the fire. And I think people's feet need to be held to the fire, but I don't see people thinking they need to go testify in these different places. And I have to say, a lot of times I get lost on this stuff, right? Excise tax, I'm like lost. I'm going to fully admit it, right? And so, you know, I like to follow the APFO Facebook page, but often I'm completely lost in something. I don't know what it is. I feel like I should be able to understand it, but I don't follow it. And so I just feel like we need some way to hold them accountable in a way that an average or above average person can be involved and really move this forward.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, next question.
Yeah.
Vicky, just a minute. I want to add in something.
Okay.
I think, Vicky, I hear you. I think definitely I will try my best to see if I can push that aside. Because my training is a structural engineer, I really hate to see the portables. I know how unsafe, even from the extreme weather, and the infrastructure is really the key. We need to provide the good hardware as well as the teacher, which is the software. We do the magic together to improve the quality. So thank you, Vicky.
Okay.
Thank you, Julie.
Next question. What are the strengths and weaknesses of the current adequate public facilities ordinance, and how should it be improved? I'm trying to rotate it. Linfeng, you want to start with this one?
Yeah, I think for the overall frame, APFO just on paper, I think it looks a pretty good framework. But I think the weakness that we can tell from the practice, it didn't do its function, and seems a lot of exceptions and the loopholes. That's why we always end up overcrowding issue here. So I think, you know, the one overcrowding, growing portable classroom, and frequent redistricting, it's end of the day is the money and the APFO. So how do we improve? I think it's really pretty, you know, look easy to say, right? But it's hard to do. It's to remove the, you know, those exceptions and the loopholes. And also development should be grant only when the school capacity under 100% for a couple of years. And also the transportation around the school also need to be studied. And if it's a remediation is needed, we need to implementing them before the project is complete. We cannot just push off, get away. The developer cannot get away. So thank you.
Okay, well, on to the next question. Oh no, we're on APFO. So Linfeng is next up. Vicky, do you want to take a shot at how is APFO working and how should it be improved?
I think she might be gone. I don't see her here anymore.
Oh dear.
Is that Vic? Yeah, Vicky said she has like a medical procedure tomorrow. She had to prepare for, so she told me she might have to leave in the middle of it. So sorry about that.
Oh darn, because I want the last question. She actually okay. So Julie, how about APFO?
Yeah, I think we've seen we've seen the problems with it. I mean, I think it would work if no one was ever exempted, but there's no process in place for when somebody's exempted to recover that money somehow. like the county council having to put it up in its next budget or something like that, right? Like, you know, I'm just spitballing there. I'm not saying that's the right solution, but that money just disappears and we still have to provide, you know, the facilities. And it doesn't seem like the county council is willing to put forth that money, and they probably need to.
Okay. And then on to the last question. Some have advocated for public-private partnerships as a means of facilitating school construction. What exactly would such a public-private partnership entail? And you know, Vicky has been one of those advocates, so I'm really, I really want to know the answer to this question because I have no idea. Julie, you want to take a stab at it?
I mean, I can take a stab at it. I have to admit that the first time I've actually heard about it was actually testimony from I think it was James Cecil at the forum a couple of nights ago. Yeah, so I had to do a little research into what it is, and it looks like it can be various different things, but I think the most common ones is putting schools in private buildings. So not using public funds to build the buildings, but, you know, essentially putting schools into buildings built by others and then renting them. You know, I'm hesitant about those things because it just seems like there's many times when that comes back to bite people. Rents increase, all sorts of different things happen, right? Like, and so, you know, if you think about private companies taking over public utilities, right? Like, there's all sorts of problems that have happened, like, you know, Texas, one of them. You know, I just worry about that with the schools. I worry about that with the kids. And so, I don't know. I don't know enough about it. I do think we're kind of taking a foray into it though, with Kerwin and the idea that the preschools can be not in public buildings. And we did a foray into it with, I think it's leasing, is it commercial real estate space in order to put some of these preschools that will be part of Kerwin and the expansion of preschools. So I guess we'll see how it happens.
Linfeng?
I think it's I think I don't want to, you know, I think it's a good idea to try and explore because we in building a school right now, it's so expensive, $140 million to build a new school, and the money from the regular funding, it will take a long time. I think it's worth the effort to try something different. I mean, not all approaches are perfect, right? But we definitely need to learn some of experience from the different county. For example, the Prince George County, they have the projects that 1.5 years ago used this public-private partnership to build 6 schools in 3 years. Supposed to complete July 23, and creating the rooms for 8,000 students. So you can see the benefits. It's really the speed. It's very quick, and also the private company, they can bundle all the work together, like a design, financing, construction, and maintenance, all in one basket. But I think the relationship will be a little bit complicated, and it's almost like a marriage, right? Not all of marriages can be happy and long-lasting. We hope for, but you know, that definitely some risk there. I will definitely supporting to explore and then learn from the practice. So, thank you.
Okay, so that's the questions I had prepared, and I don't think we've had any in the chat. Does anybody in the audience have anything they'd like to add, or shall we wrap this up since we've been going an hour now, and we've lost a panelist? What do you think, Jake?
I think Hiruy did have a question in the chat, or I think he raised his hand here too.
Okay.
Yeah, Thanks, Jake. So this was really really helpful panel discussion on redistricting and APFO and so on and so forth. But I really want to challenge the assumptions about the public-private partnership that were made so far. There's the notion that they maybe perhaps save time, or they help with financing, or they help, there's some efficiencies gained. And then the one that's actually maybe even more fatal is that it makes because the county is limited in how much it can take out in debt. It makes it's an alternative way to take out debt. This last point that I made, it's not true, because the director of finance said that it actually adds to the county debt. So it was mentioned when the courthouse was being built, the county was told that it would not add to the debt. And in the 2020 Spending Affordability Advisory Committee, she told the group that it actually adds to the county debt. So I really, my concern is that we're sort of, people are acting like there's like some free money that's going to be earned, or that's out there. There's no free money. At the end of the day, the taxpayer dollars are being put forward as a collateral to get this money. So somehow, some way, that risk is being absorbed by the taxpayer dollars. So just wanted to say that. And then the other thing is, if the high school 13, from the time that the land was purchased until now, I mean, that was, I would say, and from the time the construction started, that was pretty fast. I mean, if we're saying 3 or 4 years is like what we're looking at, then that's it seems like a reasonable amount of time. So I'm not saying let's not explore P3s, but I really hope that when we do, we're really we're providing advantages or benefits that that we can clearly discern from like the benefit of the county doing it. Because so far what I've seen is the county not having money is the challenge. Like the fact that we don't have, the school surcharge fees were low for a long time, and not having the budget to do it has been more of a challenge, and the availability of land really than the, the financing, or like the ability to provide additional financing or speed or so just, urging that, when we say it's beneficial, we identify like really what the benefit is, because so far I haven't seen any difference, except it's just somebody else is doing it rather than the county. And especially in Howard County, to me, that's highly risky, because there's no accountability. So I don't even think the accountability structure exists to oversee these kinds of huge projects being run by somebody else. So just that's all I want to say.
Right.
Managing the conflict of interest.
Well, the thing is, and kind of what motivated that question was, people talk about, we want to explore public-private partnerships, but I have never seen a concrete proposal for what an actual public-private partnership would look like for a public school building. So there's nothing that you can base an assessment on. And Hiruy's question, there's a whole bunch of questions. Hiruy hit up a lot of them. Would the building be of the same quality and conform to the ed spec as a regular public school? Would how do you convince a community that they want to be the first people, the guinea pig for a public-private partnership? Another question is, you know, for the private partner, why are they participating? What are they getting? And what value do they add for what they're getting? And like I said, I've never seen a proposal that enables those questions to be answered. It's just a phrase that sounds good, you know, maybe.
I think for private, they looking for profit for sure, definitely. And I think Hiruy just said, well, the income we still need to fix, right? If we no free lunch, the money we pay today or tomorrow, we still need to pay. That's
Right.
just the mechanism, you know. It's maybe we pay more tomorrow sometimes because the interest, everything accumulate. So I think we can explore, but we always have a question mark in our mind to examine how beneficial. So yeah.
Okay. So I think I see no hands up. So I think that we're done. And thank you so much, Julie and Linfeng, for participating in our panel discussion. And to Vicky, I wish she was still here. So Jake, I'm handing it back to you.
Yes, thank you to Linfeng and Julie, and to Vicky for participating. Thank you, Drew, for moderating it. And yeah, so sorry again about the trolling there. I think that was a first for us, at least in terms of somebody actually getting to show anything. So I'll have to edit that out of the final cut when we put this up on YouTube. But yeah, so very last thing I just want to announce, as I said I would get to after the panel. So just as a reminder for people, we've got a big opportunity here for our club to become a Progressive Maryland chapter, which will give us access to a software called Van, which will allow us to, like, you know, do targeted door knocks past election season, so we can actually, you know, talk to community members directly even after the elections, and continue to grow the club. Normally this is software that would cost like thousands of dollars countywide, but if we become a chapter of Progressive Maryland, we can get it for free through them. So not only should people become dues paying members of Progressive Democrats of Howard County, but for us to be able to become a official chapter of Progressive Maryland, which Howard County does not have one currently, we have to get 15 dues paying members to Progressive Maryland in Howard County, which is not that high of a bar to meet. So I think we've already got a good amount, but we want to hit that 15 number. You can pay for as little as $5 a month, but I think they encourage $10 a month. So it is a little bit more than our dues, but still, I think it will go a long way. So
Jake, how many more members do you need? Sorry to interrupt.
Good question. I don't know the exact number. I'm gonna have to get back with Progressive Maryland, but I don't think we're at 15 yet. But I would guess that we're probably over halfway. I mean, we could just quick show of hands. I mean, who on this call is a member? I know I am. Drew, Hiruy, I don't know if you are. I think Meagan might be. Yeah, and I think we've got some others not on the call as well. So we're relatively close. I encourage people to consider doing it. But well, that's all I had for tonight. Thank you, everybody. And you know, thank you again. It is my last meeting as president, so thank you for all the support and for all the members and people who show up to our monthly meetings and help make the club a success. So thank you, Chow, for becoming a member. Yes.
Hey, can you mention our thing on October 1st?
Yes, I had mentioned that earlier as well, but yes, I will. I unfortunately didn't have time to put the picture of the stamp on here, but yes, Lizette, our social committee chair, we're having kind of a social event plus a pledge related event, and that is Meagan has ordered some stamps that have messaging related to getting money out of politics, and so we're going to have a little dollar bill stamping party social event this Saturday evening at 7 p.m. at Lizette's home at 2774 St. John's Lane in Ellicott City, Maryland. I believe I put it in the chat earlier, but I will put it in the chat again there. And I hope people can make it out to that. Should be fun. And then yeah, APFA webinar on Wednesday evening. So with no further ado, are we good to go? Can I motion to adjourn?
Hey, you're gonna be big lawyers someday, am I right?
I gotta make it through law school first. Let's see how this goes. But yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just keep us in the loop, your progress. Okay.
We'll do.
Okay.
But
Good luck in the study.
yes, thank you.
Thank you for inviting me. Good to see you all.
Yep, good to see you. Okay, motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
I will
second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay.
nay. Oh, sorry. I'm that's past my bedtime.
Yes.
I'm an aye.
Yes, nice. Okay, well, have a good evening, everybody. Take care.
Bye.
Good night.
Okay, join the membership. Good night, Jake. Thank you very much.
Take care. Bye.